My husband confessed his mistress was pregnant, then whispered, "I don't know who I'm choosing." I felt something in me snap. "Good," I said. "Because I'm pregnant too." He froze. 3 weeks later, he learned one pregnancy had never existed, and that wasn't the worst revelation. The night before I told that lie, Lance came home. "Everything okay?" He stared at his hands. "Pamela, I need to tell you something before you hear it from someone else." My stomach tightened. I turned off the faucet. "What happened?" He rubbed his palms against his jeans. "I've been seeing someone." For a second, I genuinely thought I had misunderstood him. "Seeing someone?" He finally looked at me. "Yes." I slowly put the glass down. "How long?" He hesitated. That hesitation told me this wasn't some one-night mistake. "About 6 months." 6 months. Half a year of coming home to me while maintaining another relationship somewhere else. Birthdays had happened during those 6 months. Family dinners. Weekends together. Our anniversary. There had even been a weekend I planned because I thought we needed to reconnect. Apparently Lance had been reconnecting with someone else too. "Who is she?" "Her name is Denise." I had never heard the name before. That somehow made it worse. She wasn't a friend I had failed to notice. She was an entire hidden part of my husband's life. "Does she know you're married?" "Yes." I gave a short laugh. "Great." "Pamela." "No. Keep going. You didn't come home tonight just because you suddenly developed a conscience." His face changed. There was more. "What else?" He swallowed. "She's pregnant." That was the moment everything shifted. The affair hurt. The pregnancy made it permanent. Even if Lance never spoke to Denise romantically again, there would still be a child connecting them. "How far along?" "A little over 8 weeks. Is it yours?" "She says it is." That wasn't my question. He looked down. "Yes, I believe it is." My brain immediately started doing the math. 8 weeks. I started replaying ordinary days from 2 months earlier. Movie nights. Dinner together. The morning he kissed me goodbye and said he'd be home late because something had come up. Suddenly every harmless memory had another possibility hidden inside it. "Do you love her?" Lance took too long to answer. "I don't know." I almost wished he had said yes. Yes would have been brutal, but at least it would have been clear. "I don't know" meant he had risked 8 years of marriage without even knowing what he wanted. I pulled out a chair and sat across from him. "Why are you telling me now?" She wanted clarity. "What does that mean?" She didn't want to keep hiding everything. "So you're telling me because she might have done it first." "That's not fair." I stared at him. "Fair?" He rubbed his face. "I know how this looks." "How it looks?" "I know what I did was wrong." "Then stop talking like this happened to you." He went quiet. A few seconds later, his eyes filled. "I messed everything up." Then came the explanations. We'd been distant. We were more like roommates sometimes. He felt ignored. Denise listened to him. He never planned for it to become serious. I sat there listening until I realized he wasn't really apologizing. He was building a story that made the affair sound like something our marriage had produced instead of something he had chosen. So I asked the only question that mattered. "Are you leaving me?" He stopped talking. "What?" "You heard me. Are you leaving?" "I don't know." Something cold settled in my chest. "You don't know." "I need time." "For what?" "To figure out what I'm doing." "You've had 6 months. There's a baby involved now." I stared at him. "So you need time to choose between your wife and the woman carrying your child." "It's not that simple." "It actually sounds very simple from where I'm sitting." "Pamela, I have responsibilities." And apparently none of them mattered before tonight. He slept in the guest room. I went upstairs, shut our bedroom door, and held myself together until the house went quiet. Then I sat on the floor beside the bed and cried. I kept thinking about Denise. What did she look like? How much did she know about me? What had Lance told her? But mostly I kept thinking about the baby. Years earlier, Lance and I had tried to have one. At first, it had been exciting. Then every late period became hope. Every negative test became another disappointment. Eventually, intimacy started feeling like a schedule instead of something we wanted. After about a year, we stopped trying. We told ourselves we were taking the pressure off. Maybe we'd try again later. Maybe we wouldn't. We never really returned to the conversation. Around 2 in the morning, I went into the bathroom looking for painkillers. I opened the cabinet under the sink and saw an old, empty pregnancy test box pushed behind some toiletries. I had forgotten it was there. I sat on the closed toilet holding it. And one ugly thought kept repeating in my head. She had something I couldn't give him. I know now that wasn't a fair thought. Not to me. Not to Denise. Not to the baby. But I wasn't thinking clearly. I was thinking like someone who had just been told her marriage had become a competition she never agreed to enter. Then another thought came. What if Lance thought I was pregnant too? Would he still need time? Would he suddenly know which life he wanted? Would 8 years of marriage matter again if he believed I was carrying his child? I should have dismissed the idea. I didn't. I barely slept. By morning, I had convinced myself I just wanted an answer. That wasn't completely true. I wanted him scared. I wanted his certainty gone. When I came downstairs, Lance was back at the kitchen table. I was going to make coffee, he said. I don't want any. He nodded. Then I said, I need to tell you something. His shoulders tightened. What? My period's late. That part was true. Stress had thrown my cycle off before. I took a test. His face changed. I looked him directly in the eyes. I'm pregnant. He went completely pale. Wait. I said nothing. You're pregnant. Yes. How long have you known? Not long. Are you sure? Yes. That one word changed everything. He sat down like his legs had stopped working. This can't be happening. I almost asked which pregnancy he meant. Instead, I waited. He looked at me. What are we going to do? Less than 12 hours earlier, he needed time to decide what he wanted. Now suddenly, there was a we again. I don't know. We'll figure it out. I stared at him. Will we? Yes. You weren't even sure you wanted to stay married last night. I was overwhelmed. And now? This changes things. Of course it did. What about Denise? His jaw tightened. I'll deal with it. What does that mean? I'm staying here. I felt a rush of satisfaction. Then shame. You're staying. We should work on our marriage. Because I'm pregnant. Because I don't want to lose us. He started talking about counseling. About coming home earlier. About fixing what we had ignored. Then he said, maybe this is some kind of sign. I stared at him. A sign? That we shouldn't give up. 8 years together had not been enough of a sign. His vows had not been enough. But one pregnancy that didn't exist suddenly gave him clarity. I should have confessed. I didn't. For the next several days, Lance became painfully attentive. He came home early. He cooked. He texted me during the day. How are you feeling? Do you need anything? Are you tired? He started reading about pregnancy. Once, I watched him stand in the grocery store comparing vitamins as if choosing the wrong bottle could destroy our future. The worst part was realizing he had always been capable of making an effort. He just hadn't done it until fear gave him a reason. One evening, he came up behind me in the kitchen and rested his hand lightly against my stomach. I froze. There's really a baby in there. My throat tightened. I almost confessed. Then his phone buzzed on the counter. The screen lit up. Denise. He turned it face down. Aren't you answering? No. How often is she calling? A lot. She probably has questions. I told her I need space. I looked at him. She's pregnant, Lance. You don't get space from that. I know. So, what are you doing? I'm trying to save our marriage. He said it like I was supposed to be grateful. What exactly did you tell her about us? His expression tightened. What do you mean? She knew you were married. What did she think was happening here while she was sleeping with you? I told her we'd been having problems. What kind of problems? Does it matter? Yes. He sighed. I told her things had been bad for a while. How bad? Pamela. How bad? He finally said, she thought we were probably separating. I laughed. When were we doing that? I didn't give her a date. So while you were sleeping in our bed and making plans with me, you were telling her our marriage was practically over. I was trying to explain the situation. No. You were trying to make yourself sound less married. He walked away. That conversation stayed with me. Because now I wasn't just thinking about what Lance had done. I was wondering what version of me he had created for Denise. A few days later, he started complaining about her. She won't stop calling. I looked up. She's carrying your child. I know. She probably wants to know what's happening. I've already told her. What did you tell her? That I'm focusing on this marriage. And the baby? I said I'll be responsible if it's mine. I caught it immediately. If? What? You said if it's yours. He shrugged. She says it is. You told me you believed her. I do. Then why are you suddenly questioning it? I'm not. You just did. He became defensive. I'm saying nothing has been confirmed. That was when I noticed the pattern. When a woman complicated Lance's life, he found a way to make her credibility the problem. To Denise, maybe I was the difficult wife standing between them. To me, Denise was becoming the questionable woman whose baby might not even be his. Whichever one of us wasn't in the room was apparently easier to blame. During the second week, Lance came home angry. He dropped his keys onto the counter. What happened? Denise showed up at work. Why? Because I haven't been answering enough. How often have you actually spoken to her? He didn't answer. Lance. Twice. This week. Yes. I stared at him. You told a pregnant woman you'd built a relationship with that you needed space, then spoke to her twice in a week? She knew things were complicated. She knows that now. He glared at me. She threatened to come here. That got my attention. To the house. Yes. What did you say? I told her not to. And you think that ends it? I don't know. For the first time since I had lied, I felt genuine panic. Until then, my fake pregnancy had existed inside our house. The possibility of Denise standing at our door made the situation feel dangerously real. What does she know about me being pregnant? He hesitated. Nothing. I stared at him. You haven't told her? I didn't see the point. You're changing everything you promised her because of it. I never promised her anything. I didn't believe that for a second. Nobody stays in a 6-month relationship with a married man who says he might leave someday without hearing some kind of promise. You don't know her. No. Because you made sure I didn't know she existed. He had no answer. By the third week, my own lie was becoming impossible to maintain. Lance started asking practical questions. Had I called a doctor? How far along did I think I was? When would the appointment be? I kept things vague. Then one evening he said, we should schedule something. I will. I want to come. I know. When? Soon. Pamela, we need to know how far along you are. There was nowhere left to go. I could have invented an appointment. I could have delayed another week. I could have claimed something had happened. I refused to do that. I had already crossed one line. I wasn't going to turn a real kind of loss into another lie. That evening, I sat Lance down in the living room. He immediately looked worried. What happened? There isn't a baby. His face fell. Oh. He reached toward me. Pamela. I knew what he thought. No. He stopped. What? I didn't lose it. His expression changed. I was never pregnant. Silence. What are you talking about? I lied. He stood up. You lied? Yes. About being pregnant? Yes. He stared at me as if I had become a stranger. Why? Because you told me your mistress was pregnant and then said you needed time to decide which life you wanted. So you invented a baby? Yes. What is wrong with you? I swallowed. Fair question. You let me believe this for 3 weeks. I know. I thought I was going to have 2 children. You are going to have 1. That is not the point. His voice rose. You manipulated me. Yes. You changed everything with a lie. And you changed our marriage with 6 months of them. This is different. Of course you think it is. It is different. I didn't say what I did was okay. Then why did you do it? I could have hidden behind anger. Instead, I told him the part that made me look worst. Because I wanted you to panic. His face changed. I wanted you to feel trapped. He stared at me. I wanted you to understand what it felt like when somebody else made a decision that changed your future without asking you. That is insane. Maybe. You wanted revenge. Partly. He gave a bitter laugh. At least you admit it. I've admitted more in 5 minutes than you did in 6 months. He grabbed his keys. You're unbelievable. And now you finally have something you can point at so you don't have to think about what you did. You lied about a child. Yes. And somehow I'm still the bad guy. I don't need to make you anything, Lance. His mouth tightened. I don't even know who you are right now. I looked at him. That makes 2 of us. He left and stayed with his brother, Arthur. After the door closed, I sat alone in the living room. The lie was finally over. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I cried. Because those 3 weeks had given me the answer I thought I wanted. Lance had chosen me. And now I understood how little that choice meant. 2 days later, I got a message from an unknown number. Is this Pamela? I stared at it. Yes. Who is this? The reply came quickly. Denise. My stomach dropped. Then another message appeared. I need to know what Lance has been telling you. I considered ignoring her. Instead, I typed, "Call me." The phone rang less than a minute later. Her voice surprised me. She sounded nervous. Hi. Hi. This is awkward. We're well past awkward. She gave a short laugh. Then she said, "Lance told me you were pregnant." When? A few days ago. That surprised me. He had hidden it from her for almost the entire 3 weeks. What exactly did he tell you? That he needed to stay with you and do the right thing. Of course he had phrased it that way. What else? He said yesterday that the pregnancy wasn't real. I swallowed. That part is true. Silence. You weren't pregnant? No. She was quiet for several seconds. Then she laughed. Not because it was funny. It sounded like disbelief had finally become too much. Oh my God. I know. Why would you do that? I almost snapped at her. Instead, I told her. I found out about you and the baby the night before. Lance told me he didn't know if he wanted to stay married. He said that. Yes. He told me he'd already decided to leave. That hit harder than I expected. What? He said your marriage had basically been over for years. I sat down. What else did he tell you? She hesitated. He said he was only still there because leaving would destroy you. How? He said you were emotionally dependent on him. I actually laughed. Anything else? He said you couldn't really support yourself. False. Another pause. He also said you hadn't slept together in years. I closed my eyes. Also false. Oh. We weren't perfect, I said. But we weren't separated. We still shared a bed. We still made plans. I had no idea you existed. She went quiet. So I told her everything. The confession. The pregnancy. Lance saying he needed time. My lie. How quickly he suddenly decided the marriage had to come first. When I finished, Denise said, he told me he wasn't sure my baby was his. I sat upright. What? After he found out you were supposedly pregnant. I immediately remembered Lance saying if it's mine. He actually questioned you? Yes. Did he have any reason? No. Her voice sharpened. I told him from the beginning that if he wanted a paternity test after the baby was born, fine. I have nothing to hide. That was the moment everything clicked. Lance hadn't simply lied to both of us. He had been rewriting each woman whenever the other became inconvenient. To Denise, I was fragile, dependent, and trapped in a dead marriage. To me, Denise was demanding, unreasonable, and suddenly questionable. We were both being handed whatever version made Lance look least responsible. Denise told me he had spent months talking about their future, where they might live, how he wanted to be a father, how he was waiting for the right moment to end our marriage. When she became pregnant, he had apparently told her the baby might finally force him to stop avoiding the truth. Then I announced my fake pregnancy. Suddenly his version of the truth changed again. I thought he chose you, Denise said. So did I. He didn't, did he? No. That was the first thing we completely agreed on. Lance wasn't choosing between two women. He was choosing whichever future frightened him less. Denise asked, "Do you still want him?" No. The answer came out immediately. That surprised even me. 3 weeks earlier, I had lied about a pregnancy because I couldn't stand the idea of him leaving. Now I couldn't imagine taking him back. What about you? I asked. She was quiet. Then she said, I don't think I can stay with someone who does this. Does what? If he spent 6 months telling me you were unstable while going home to you every night, what would he eventually say about me? I had no answer. We spoke for almost an hour. We didn't become friends. There was too much between us for that. But once we compared what Lance had told each of us, almost every story he had built collapsed. 2 days later, Denise ended the romantic relationship with him. She still expected him to be responsible for the baby if he was confirmed as the father. She simply no longer wanted a future with him. I found out because Lance called me. What did you tell her? No hello. Just accusation. The truth. You had no right. I laughed. You're actually going with that? You deliberately ruined things between us. She called me because nothing you told either of us matched. You didn't have to tell her everything. And you didn't have to tell her our marriage was dead. That isn't what I said. Apparently you said a lot. He exhaled sharply. She doesn't want to be with me anymore. Then focus on being a father. This is what you wanted. I thought about it. Not at first. He went quiet. At first, I wanted you to choose me, Pamela. But then I realized your choice didn't mean anything. That's not true. When Denise was the only one pregnant, you needed time to decide if you still wanted your wife. The second you thought I was pregnant too, suddenly our marriage became your priority. You don't know what I felt. I know what you did. Silence. And when staying with me became easier, suddenly you weren't even sure her baby was yours. She told you that? Yes. She twisted it. Of course. You two have decided I'm some kind of monster. You did most of the work yourself. He hung up. Our separation became permanent soon after. There was no dramatic courtroom showdown. No screaming match in front of a judge. Just paperwork. Financial records. Conversations about furniture. The slow process of taking one shared life and dividing it into two. We sold the house. I moved into a smaller apartment. The first night there, my dining table hadn't arrived yet, so I ate takeout on the floor between unopened boxes. I expected to feel pathetic. Instead, I felt calm. No wondering where Lance was. No phone lighting up beside me. No trying to decide whether I was angry enough to leave or scared enough to stay. Just quiet. And the quiet belonged to me. A few months later, Denise gave birth to a boy. Arthur contacted me about some paperwork that had ended up with Lance's things. Near the end of the conversation, he said, "The baby was born last week." I paused. Is he okay? Yeah. Healthy. There was one question left. And the paternity test? Arthur knew exactly what I meant. Lance is the father. After the call, I sat quietly for a while. I didn't feel satisfaction. The baby hadn't done anything wrong, and I never wanted him caught in the middle of any of this. But the result closed the last uncertainty. Lance had a son. His decisions had become permanent in a way none of his explanations could undo. From what I heard, he was trying to be involved as a father. I hope he is. Whatever kind of husband he was to me, that child deserves a father who shows up. Denise and I never spoke again. We weren't friends. One honest conversation didn't erase what had happened. She had knowingly been involved with my husband. I had lied about something serious enough to turn 3 lives upside down. But I don't regret telling her the truth. The divorce eventually became final. A while later, Lance sent me a message late at night. "Do you ever wish we'd handled everything differently?" I stared at it for a long time. There were plenty of answers I could have sent. I could have told him I wished he had never cheated. I could have reminded him that none of this would have happened if he had been honest. I could have said something cruel. Instead, I wrote, "I wish we'd told each other the truth before there was nothing left to save." Several minutes passed. Then he replied, "Me too." That was the last personal conversation we had. I don't know if Lance is happy now. I don't ask. Arthur has mentioned that Lance and Denise keep things civil for their son. Maybe that's his consequence. Not some dramatic collapse. Just having to live inside the life his choices created. As for me, starting over wasn't glamorous. There were lonely nights. There were days when I questioned whether I had become someone I didn't recognize. I had to admit that Lance betraying me did not automatically justify everything I did afterward. The fake pregnancy was cruel. I knew that when I said it. I knew it while I watched him believe it. And I knew it when I finally confessed. What made it worse was that part of me enjoyed seeing him panic. I had spent one night listening to Lance calmly explain that another woman's pregnancy had turned our marriage into something he needed time to think about. The next morning, I made his future uncertain too. For 3 weeks, he came home early. He checked on me. He talked about counseling. He acted afraid of losing our marriage. And for a little while, I thought that meant I had won. I hadn't. I hadn't made him love me more. I had only changed which outcome scared him most. That was what finally broke whatever attachment I still had to winning him back. The moment I actually felt free wasn't when Lance believed my lie. It was months later, sitting alone in that apartment, realizing I no longer cared whether he would have chosen me over Denise. I didn't want to be someone's safer option. I didn't want a husband who needed a crisis to remember I mattered. And I didn't want to become the kind of person who had to invent a child to force someone to prove it. I regret that part. I don't regret leaving. I don't regret telling Denise what Lance had said behind both our backs. And if I'm being completely truthful, there is still a small part of me that remembers his face when I told him I was pregnant too and thinks, for one moment, he finally understood what it felt like to lose control of your own future. Maybe that was revenge. Maybe it was cruelty. Maybe it was both. After what Lance did, was my fake pregnancy understandable revenge, or did I cross a line that made me just as toxic as the man who betrayed me?